everyone. This is a new episode of the program Moscow MOSAIC, and I'm the host, Mike Gibson. In our programs, we've always talked many times about Chinese cuisine and about the people from this beautiful country who live and work in Moscow. However, we have never actually filmed our program in China. It's time to fix this. So, our episode today is from the People's Republic of China, from the city of Harbin.
On today's program, Moscow Days in Harbin, a friendship stood the test of time. In my opinion, Moscow Days was a great success, and the signing of a new cooperation agreement lays the foundation for our future. Moscow and Harbin are strengthening business and economic ties. We hope to fully realize the trade and economic potential of Harbin and Moscow. Each city has its own strengths, and together we can make each other even better. Panda diplomacy, an effective way to build international ties. Because loving nature is natural to human beings. That is why I believe panda diplomacy, fluffy diplomacy, is the way of the future.
Harbin is the most Russian city in China. It was founded by engineers and workers of the Russian Empire at the end of the 19th century, during the construction of the Chinese Eastern Railway. After the October Revolution, Harbin became the center of Russian emigration to Asia. The settlers called it Eastern Moscow. I like this name.
It was on this very site that the city of Harbin was founded in 1898. During its most recent renovation, the building was restored to its original historic appearance, with the facade expanded tenfold. Today, both this railway station and the city itself have become the main trade gateway between Russia and China, and a shared historical past helps strengthen the friendship between the two countries and develop not only political and economic, but also cultural cooperation.
Our travels are always connected with the capital of Russia, and this program is no exception. We came here especially for the Days of Moscow in Harbin. This holiday for the two cities includes many different events, a business forum, an exhibition, a cultural program, and even sports competitions.
4 days in late May in northern China were dedicated to the friendship between Russia's capital and Harbin, a city often called the gateway to Russia. The Moscow Days in Harbin platform is where the future of Sino-Russian ties takes shape and where roadmaps for joint projects are drawn up. The program brought together business sessions, round tables, direct meetings between government officials and business representatives from both countries, and even a major international exhibition.
It is no coincidence that the Days of Moscow in Harbin are held at the same time as the 10th Russian-Chinese Expo. This is a very important event for the two countries.
Over 5 days, the exhibition was visited by more than 150,000 people. The total exhibition area was over 12,000 square meters, of which 5,000 were occupied by the Russian section. Around 250 domestic companies from 16 regions of Russia were represented here.
The Moscow stand, as always, is right at the heart of the exhibition. It's decorated with Chinese lanterns, which are a symbol of luck and prosperity.
The Moscow government and personally head of the Department for External Economic and International Relations of Moscow, Minister Sergei Cheryomin, presented at the stand the investment and technological opportunities of the capital and outlined the key directions for the city's development. The Moscow stand in Harbin was always crowded. Expo participants and guests could learn everything about the best practices of Russia's capital directly from the city's senior leadership. The Moscow stand is not only a showcase of the Russian capital's achievements and potential. a special place is given to materials from the Museum of Victory related to the host city of the expo, Harbin. For example, on display was one of the most significant documents in the city's history, the Act of Transfer as Civil Authority in Harbin by the Red Army Command to a representative of the National Government of China, signed on the 1st of January 1946.
At the Moscow stand, you can get acquainted not only with the capital of Russia, but with your own eyes see the remotest corners of this vast and beautiful country.
This is possible at the mini-stand of the Russian Geographical Society. To give visitors a more detailed look at the country, the organizers equipped the exhibition with virtual reality headsets through which visitors could see the most beautiful places of the Russian Federation. We have a 360 VR film about Russia, covering different regions from central Russia to Kamchatka. You can see everything around you. In addition to history and stunning views of Russia, the Moscow stand also offered visitors a look at the products of the capital's industry. Some exhibits, however, were already very familiar to Chinese visitors.
In case you didn't know, the Moscow chocolate bar Alyonka is the best Russian gift you can give in China, and you can try it right here at the Moscow stand.
Alyonka is arguably the most popular foreign chocolate in China. Every year, around 100 tons of this famous treat are shipped here from Moscow. They choose us because we can guarantee quality, and they love our chocolate for its production heritage. Our factories are over 200 years old, and we have a deep understanding of how to make a quality product that satisfies every consumer's desire. Production is original, based in Moscow, and of course, the majority of output is exported directly from Moscow. One of the most striking hidden messages at the Moscow stand, symbolizing the strong friendship between Russia and China, is the silhouette of a panda and a bear. The symbol of this relationship, Katyusha, the first Russian-born panda, is turning 3 this summer. We were very fortunate to meet Moscow Zoo director Svetlana Akulova at the expo and discuss panda diplomacy in the modern world. In the very beginning, when we first started developing the panda diplomacy agenda, people treated it as something, well, cute, funny, not serious, something about bears. But in 2019, when the two leaders came to Moscow Zoo, when, on the 70th anniversary of diplomatic friendship between China and Russia, we were gifted the giant pandas Zhui and Ding Ding, and the whole world started talking about it. And especially when 2 years ago, little Katyusha was born, known, of course, in both China and Russia, well, the whole world understood that panda diplomacy, or the so-called fluffy diplomacy, as we also refer to it, well, it truly is a powerful lever between our two countries. In one of our previous episodes, we told you in detail about Katyusha and her parents. So, in Harbin, we naturally had to ask how the young panda was doing, the same one we visited 2 years ago. In addition to animals, technology and investment, guests at the Moscow stand were also interested in media cooperation with Russian outlets. Among the visitors to the Moscow exhibition were representatives of Chinese television who, as it turned out, were eager to work and film in Moscow. I make documentary films, and I even worked in Moscow a few years ago when we were filming a documentary about the Great Patriotic War. We would love to expand cooperation between our countries and broadcasters, to be able to exchange footage or co-produce documentary films. I am very glad that today I have the opportunity to meet the Big Asia channel at this exhibition. I truly look forward to a fruitful collaboration in the future. The 10th Sino-Russian Expo is not just an interesting exhibition with informative stands. It also features an extensive business program, round tables, and discussion meetings.
The main session of the Expo is dedicated to Moscow and Harbin. The Moscow government, together with their local colleagues, will discuss the potential to develop economic, business and investment cooperation between the two cities.
Among the members of the Moscow delegation are economists, lawyers, heads of educational institutions, and various state organizations. Together, they are introducing Chinese colleagues to the economic, industrial, and cultural potential of Moscow. For Moscow, China is a most vital foreign economic partner. Last year, Moscow's foreign trade turnover with the People's Republic of China exceeded $100 billion. That truly is an impressive figure. And without a doubt, we hope to see our high technology exports with our Chinese partners continue to grow further in the future. Among the largest projects carried out by Chinese companies in Moscow is the Huaming Park Business Center in the northeast of the Russian capital. Its total area covers around 5 hectares, over 100,000 square meters, comprising the Solux Hotel, modern congress and business centers, apartments, and a landscaped park in the Chinese style featuring a classical architectural ensemble. The latter is the largest scenic park with traditional national character built outside of China. Another project, this one infrastructural, involves underground construction. The CRCC Corporation built 3 stations of the Moscow Metro, incorporated into the big circle line of the capital's underground, the longest circular metro line in the world. One could cite many examples of our cooperation, but I want to emphasize that more than 300 major companies from China are actively operating in Moscow today. We actively support small and medium-sized businesses as well. Moscow today has a very attractive investment climate. We offer unprecedented incentives for the development of startups and high-tech enterprises. And of course, all of this creates the conditions for foreign companies to feel at home while in Moscow. For their part, the Chinese colleagues led by the deputy mayor of Harbin noted a 15% growth in bilateral trade over the past year and put forward their own initiatives for further developing cooperation. We hope to deepen ties between our governments and create the most effective cooperation platform possible, sharing information closely and regularly delivering joint projects across different fields. We also hope to fully realize the trade and economic potential of Harbin and Moscow. Each city has its own strengths, and together we can make each other even better. We must not forget about humanitarian and cultural exchanges. On the subject of the economy, participants noted the growing popularity of Chinese cars in Russia, as well as the development of electronics trade. Harbin is interested in the experience of Russia's capital in building and launching technology parks. For Moscow ranks second in the world in this area after Beijing. Chinese colleagues also stand to benefit from Moscow's expertise in creating a comfortable urban environment and digitalizing public services. Today, Russia and China are primarily interested in joint manufacturing projects. The second key objective is, of course, technological cooperation. Russia and China possess unique 21st century technologies across various fields. They have a great deal to share with one another and between their cities, because developing the urban environment is an extremely important area of cooperation and development for both our countries in today's climate.
At the same time as the Expo, the days of Moscow in Harbin are taking place. They begin with this exhibition by the House of Russians living abroad and this display of the victory in the Second World War.
The military exhibition tells the story of how the Red Army, after its victory over Nazi Germany, commenced operations in the East to help liberate China from Japanese imperialism. The photographs show not only battles, but also scenes from life behind the front lines, as well as the army's leadership. More than 1.5 million people fought on the front at this time. We tell the story of how these operations unfolded and conclude with the momentous parade in the city of Harbin held on the 16th of September 1945. We present a large number of both photographs and documents. We also show unique drawings by Soviet soldiers. And we end with a truly wonderful poster, my personal favorite, at the very last slide. It shows where we say we were victorious. The 9th of May 1945 and the 3rd of September 1945, when we prevailed over Nazism, over fascism, and over Japanese imperialism. Another exhibition held as part of the Days of Moscow was a display by the Museum of Russians Abroad. Harbin was one of the most important cities for emigrants after the 1917 revolution, which is why there is so much Russian culture and architecture here. The numerous photographs in the exhibition show both churches and the very first permanent building in Harbin, the station of the Chinese Eastern Railway.
This is what the railway station looked like from which the history of Harbin began.
I am visiting Harbin for the second time, and it was only today, walking through the city center, that I realized why it is called the most Russian city, or the Chinese city with a Russian soul. And not only because Russians built it not too long ago, and not because there are 6 Orthodox churches here, as there actually are, but there is a very great deal of Russian culture here. And that is probably why the Russia-China Expo has traditionally been held here. And for the second time at this event, which one might call not just a celebration of Sino-Chinese friendship, but a celebration of business. Another important item on the minister's schedule in Harbin was a meeting with compatriots living in China. Sergei Cheryomin pays close attention to engaging with Russian citizens living abroad. The minister shared with compatriots Moscow's latest achievements in transport development and digital technologies, and also mentioned the Chinese businesses increasingly making their way into Russia's capital. In turn, the minister's interlocutors spoke about their lives in China and their nostalgia for their hometowns. Several tens of thousands of Russian citizens currently live permanently in China, many of whom among them are women who have married Chinese nationals. You know, we have many mixed families where the mother is Russian and the father is Chinese. And Russian mothers always strive to pass on Russian culture to their children, to introduce them to Russian culture and the Russian language. Today's meeting seemed very useful to us. We heard about how Moscow has changed and developed. That was interesting. We also spoke about ourselves, our organizations, and it wasn't only people from Harbin at the meeting, but also representatives of the Russian club in Changchun, the Association of Russian Students in Harbin and in Dalian. The day concluded with a grand reception hosted by the government of the capital of Russia and a festive concert for all participants of the Moscow Days in Harbin.
Another event in the business program is the Russian-Chinese Trade Services Forum.
The event was timed to coincide with the 30th anniversary of the partnership and the 25th anniversary of the Treaty of Good Neighborliness between Russia and China. The main goal of the forum was to help Russia and Chinese businesses find each other and develop interstate trade and services. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I am sincerely convinced that today's conference will serve not only as a platform for the exchange of views, but as a practical tool for strengthening business trust, finding new partners, and launching promising projects. The forum was attended by representatives from various sectors: tourism, culture, and education. And it was not simply a discussion platform, but a business stage for showcasing what each participant had to offer. In particular, one of the presentations focused on medical education in the digital age. Yulia Lutokhina, Doctor of Medical Sciences and Deputy Director of the Institute of Clinical Medicine at Sechenov University, spoke to forum participants about the creation of Russia's first digital textbook in the field of clinical medicine. The core content of this textbook has been developed by leading specialists at the Institute of Clinical Medicine. This means that, for example, a chapter on hypertension is written not just by a cardiologist, but by a recognized expert who focuses specifically on this condition and works with such patients every day. In addition, because the materials are hosted on a digital platform, we were able to enrich them with a vast amount of multimedia content. This includes ultrasound videos, CT and MRI scans, diagnostic procedures, and stages of surgical operations. And most importantly, the materials on the digital platform can be continuously updated by experts in real time.
The most important event are the negotiations between the Minister of the Moscow government, Sergei Cheromyn, and the Mayor of Harbin.
The meeting focused on cooperation between the two cities in key areas: trade and economics, science, social affairs, and cultural and humanitarian matters. Among the priority areas for the Moscow side was the preservation of Russian cultural heritage in Harbin and the development of trade and investment. The Chinese side was focused on drawing on the experience of Russia's capital in urban planning and healthcare development. At the conclusion of the talks, the parties signed a cooperation program between the Moscow government and the People's Government of Harbin for 2027 to 2029. We have signed a new cooperation program for 2027 to 2029. In my view, it is very timely, and it takes into account the latest trends in urban planning, city development, and transport infrastructure development. I can say that we agreed with our colleagues to develop relations in the social sphere, particularly in education, and to try to establish school exchange programs, which are very much in demand today. A fitting finale to the Days of Moscow in Harbin and the 10th Sino-Russian Expo was a concert at the city's main Philharmonic Hall. The results of the Moscow delegation's work in Harbin were summed up by the Minister of the Government of Moscow and Head of the Department for External Economic and International Relations of Moscow, Sergei Cheromyn. Our delegation included representatives of Moscow's museums, and all these events, including our folk ensemble concerts, created an unforgettable festive atmosphere. And so, in my view, the Days of Moscow were truly a great success. And the signing of a new cooperation agreement lays the foundation for our ongoing future. The Moscow delegation's visit to Harbin demonstrated that the multifaceted ties between the two countries are not a temporary phenomenon shaped by external circumstances. Sino-Russian relations rest on a solid foundation that has stood the test of time. And the cooperation between Moscow and Harbin confirmed this once again. The signing of a cooperation program for years to come only underscored the level of trust and friendship between these two cities.
This was an unforgettable trip to the eastern Moscow. I really loved Harbin, the local architecture, the culture, and the people who live here. I hope that the business and cultural cooperation between the capital of Russia and this wonderful city will only get stronger. This was the program Moscow Mosaic, and I'm the host, Mike Gibson. See you in our next episode. Bye.